there's the potential, the complete collapse of the paper system that has held silver down for a couple generations, and it'll happen due to a contagion.
Well, hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics on a Wednesday afternoon. Early March, I believe it is March 2nd, Wednesday, March 2nd. Interesting day in the gold and silver markets. They were spoofed down a little bit lower despite World War, well, I don't want to say that, although it sure is not looking like it's heading in a positive direction with many of the things that are going on in the world. Fortunately, to dig through that, how that could affect the world, how that certainly will affect the silver market, and fortunately someone I'm excited to give some mentorly advice for everyone who's not having the easiest time of digesting certain events. But David Smith, senior reporter of the Morgan Report with David Morgan, and also a project ambassador for LODE, which is a digital silver currency that perhaps that'd be interesting to touch on before we finish up today, though. But David, great to have you on here, and how's everything going with you?
It's good to be back, Chris. I'll tell you, I'm still trying to catch my breath for what's happened over the last few weeks. First Canada and then Ukraine. And I think what's going on now in Ukraine, especially with the apparent, two things that really stand out for me beyond the other 50 unknowns. We're trying to take Russia out of the SWIFT system for payments, and also that Ukraine is actually trying to formally enter the NATO alliance. Both of those things, I think, could have incalculable consequences for the world. And I don't know how deep it goes, but it goes deep. And I think for silver, I think it's a good news initially, a bad news initially for the volatility, but the good news beyond anything we could imagine over time.
Well, from a silver price perspective, you would certainly think so. And obviously there's a lot of different dimensions of what we could dig into here, although let me take a quick step back and then you can take it from there. But we saw when the more overt news of military conflict broke out last Wednesday, following the options expiration and going into the March delivery cycle, silver went up past $25, which was surprising to me and a lot of others. Got hammered a couple times since then. Did rally quite a bit yesterday. Had an interesting day today. Again, like you said, we've had Canadian banking freezes. Now we have the U.S. freezing anything Russian. And maybe in addition to where you think silver, what you think you see happening with silver right now, perhaps you can also touch on, does it seem to you like Russia might have things in place that, you know, before they did this, they might have known how Biden would respond, and especially with them talking about metals, selling their treasuries, selling their dollars. To me, it seems like they might have a much more of a plan in place than Biden does. And to be clear, I'm not taking sides here, except, you know, there's some unfortunate things going on in the world that I'm trying to understand. So with all that said, David, how about I let you take it away from there? And any sense you can make out of any of that, we'll be grateful for.
Well, I'll tell you, I agree with what you're saying. I think that I don't think he was caught completely flat-footed on this. But I just think what we're doing, a couple of the things, without justifying him at all. You know, sometimes you have to have a certain measured response, and those two things I just mentioned, to me, are very, very frightening. And I think we're at a point where we could be at a greater risk of breaking the global financial situation than we were in 2008, because there's so much that's unknown and so much that the brakes have been taken off. There aren't any brakes going on. And so I suspect that, you know, Russia is going to get hurt by this for sure financially, but I don't think that they didn't see it coming. And I think they look at the worst case scenario and ask, can I survive this? And that's kind of where we're headed. I hope not. But I just think there wasn't much reflection going on in this. And, you know, again, without justifying anything that Putin's doing, the fact is what he's really asking for, in my view, is a neutral Ukraine and that it not be allowed to be into the NATO alliance, because that would trigger Section 5. If any country is attacked, then they'd all be ganging up on him. I suspect that is a reasonable request, to have a buffer state, and then also to be able to continue to work with the Crimean situation in Donbass. So I think that's most of what he was asking for. And a lot of things are going to get broken here that didn't have to get broken if we could come to some kind of an agreement. For silver, what I think, the volatility of silver is going to increase exponentially, up and down. And like today, it's down a bit, but I mean, look where it's gone the last few days. It's been up a lot. So it's going to scare people and shake people out and think that the narrative has changed. I think the narrative has changed, but I think it's become much, much more positive for silver because of new elements that weren't there before. One of which is, no matter how long this drags on, all the combatants are going to have to start rebuilding their ordnance, and that most of the ordnance, the missiles, the planes, the high-tech anti-tank missiles, they all take silver. And there's going to be a lot more silver that's going to be demanded than was expected a month ago or 2 months ago, as those stockpiles are built up and as they actually build more. So I think the demand piece on that's going to be significant. I think it'll be noticeable. I don't think the market was factoring that in at all. So what it does, it makes supply just that much tighter. And then you have all of these inconsistencies with the flow of trade and breaking all these things up with loans and all that. And it's going to increase for anybody that has half of a brain. It's going to increase their desire to hold silver, because how many other things have any predictability at all? How many things are likely not to go to zero, which silver never has? And so anyone who does not have all the silver that they want, they're crazy to put it off, even if they're paying more now. But I think premiums are going to rise, the price is going to rise, the availability is going to decrease. All of these things augur for a situation where silver could be on the edge of a functional abyss, which we thought would happen for years, but which may now become a reality sometime even this year, if not early next year. There's just so many unknowns that cannot be calculated into the mix, and all of that augurs for a very, very asymmetric risk-reward to holding silver.
Well, David, I will call and then bet again. I guess that would be a string bet, but I mean, I agree. Yet on top of that, isn't there a lot of silver in a missile?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we're not talking about we're not talking about like hypothetical green revolution now. I mean, now that there is military conflict again, I think it's sometimes like some people feel like act like they're watching this on a movie and they're like, yeah, one day maybe those conspiracy theorists are going to be right. And I don't think many people or enough people are grasping these things are happening now.
Absolutely. And we talk about paradigm shifts, and that word kind of gets overused, but I'm telling you, I think what has taken place within the last week or so, the last few days, is a paradigm shift that we're going to be sorting out for years. The situation with SWIFT, can that be put back together again? Is that Humpty Dumpty that's going to fall off of the wall and not work again? It's going to drive Russia closer and closer to China with a SWIFT-like system that they've been working on for several years. And people say, well, it doesn't work, and it's not going to work with the rest of us. But you know what? With the Belt and Road that they're working on, and with the multiple billions of dollars that Russia is spending to build port cities and ports in the Arctic area, with the less chance of having blockage due to snow and ice, you draw yourself a circle that looks like an egg, and the belt and road goes down at the bottom, goes through India and all that, and Asia, and up through the Afghanistan and Pakistan and all that, and then take that arc and to the Baltic, and then draw it up through the Arctic, and you've got a giant egg which has, I don't know what the percentage is, I could be wrong. I think it's half. It might be 2/3 of the world's population. It might be half. I don't know, but it's a lot. There's enough there that they could exist, I believe, in their own ecosystem with the Belt and Road and have just, a certain amount of contact with the West. But it's not an existential problem for them if they get shut off from most of it. And they've already got tendrils going into Iraq and into Spain, and they're working on relationship with Argentina and Venezuela. So they don't need to have open source for the whole world to make things work for them. And it's gonna hurt them in the short term. But driving Russia closer to China, to me, is insane, because the three great powers, of which the third is the United States, I'm not sure how we can work this against two of them. And since World War II, it's always been to work against one and play off the other one. And I think China is much more of a concern than Russia is. We should be trying to get Russia to be, a little bit on our side, as opposed to demonizing them completely. Nobody's perfect. They're not perfect, but since World War II, that's been our policy, is to work with one and then the other one, so that the both of them don't gang up on us. And we're forcing them into an existential position where they're both going to, even though they don't like each other that much, but they'll gang up to the point of getting what they want individually, and then they'll go their own ways, and who knows what we'll look like, This is concern. And I'm not just blowing smoke here. I've spent a lifetime, Chris, studying history, world history. A lot of it Russia. And so I'm not saying that I'm the font of all knowledge on this, but I think I have a sense of what drives these people that is maybe a little bit more advanced than the people in the State Department and our fossil president. I think they have. I don't think they.
David, I appreciate you saying that. There's part of me, in case hopefully this comes out right. David, you even have maybe a few more gray hairs than me. You're not 15 years old. You've lived on the planet for a while, so you're not just someone saying this, if that didn't come out too awkward there. But I think it's important because, and I've had people in the comments or whatever, when I say certain things, they're like, oh, well, you're supporting Russia, or you're a communist, or this or that. And I'm thinking, give me a break, because exactly like you said, any feelings aside, like as an American, it's like, how could someone feel comfortable with what this guy has been doing? Because now it's like you've crossed over some things that are getting hard to be undone. Because now things have been blown up. Now sanctions have been issued. So regardless, take away, if people agree with my assessment or your assessment, Pachev, look at where we are and the way, the dynamics of the situation. And I say that in the sense, David, where, let's say you and I, we go out, we're deciding what to eat for dinner. You want a burger, I want some hot wings. Maybe it's a little difference of opinion, but we can probably figure it out, have a good night. But, all right, Putin and Biden, they both went in there. They both said exactly how they felt and how much they disliked how the other guy felt. But they didn't compromise, and now things have been blown up in Ukraine. And also the sanctions have been issued. The ruble has been affected. So it's like a little harder. I mean, these two guys didn't seem like they were a good match. It was like a match and a kerosene and a fire already. It wasn't a good formula. Now it's farther down the road. And I guess that would be my next question, and maybe especially given the gold and silver impact. We know they've sold the treasuries. They've been buying gold. There's reports that they might be escalating. And, geez, you would think, well, if they're just being shut off, anyone with a Russian bank account has a new incentive to buy gold. Anyone with a Canadian bank has a new incentive to buy gold. I mean, it's getting harder and harder to see this playing out. And without a lot of money flooding into gold and silver in an already fragile market that the LBMA confirmed last year during silver squeeze, they were weeks away from running out of silver. It would seem to me like we're getting close to some sort of more overt break point. I mean, premiums have already been jacked up, so the actual paper silver, the physical silver spread has been blowing out. That's already been happening for a month or more. But where does this go from here? What actually happens next?
Well, I think it's as much where could it go. and I'm not in the predicting business of saying this is going to happen, that's going to happen, but I'm saying some really, really, really bad, potentially disruptive things are possible now that were just, not even probable a few weeks ago. And we're in a new gyre here. And when you're talking a while ago, and I said it twice, so people wouldn't think I'm a Russian apologist, but I shouldn't have to say it at all. And the thing is, somebody that says if you're trying to understand the other side, you get into their head, and then you go, oh, you're pro Putin. That's garbage. You can't have a principled discussion with somebody like that if they accuse you of having hate speech or a neo-Nazi or whatever. Those terms mean whatever they want it to mean. Our language has become so debased, and that's why we can't have a decent discussion with hardly anybody. The point is this. Go back several thousand years to Sun Tzu, in the art of war, and just remember one thing. And then you tell me that I'm an idiot for wanting to figure out what Putin's thinking and what Xi's thinking. If you know your opponent and yourself, you will be victorious in 100 battles. If you know only yourself, the odds are even. If you know neither, there is great danger in 100 battles. Now that is still studied in military war colleges today around the world. And I would suggest that people damn well better listen to that little homily if they want to get a sense of what's going on. I don't think that most people, and I'm talking European statesmen as well as the whole U.S. State Department, or the whole administration of the U.S. right now, I don't think if you put their collective understanding of Russia all together, to add it all up, it would equal very much. Because they haven't studied it at all. They don't understand it. They don't understand what happened in World War II when Hitler invaded Russia and why they feel this is an existential thing. We've already broken the promises we made to them, saying that we wouldn't move 1 inch or 1 foot to the east with NATO when the Soviet Union fell, and we've broken that rule several times. And you don't have to agree with someone to try to end up with peace, but you can't keep demonizing them, and at every chance, poking that Russian bear, which we've done for 8 years. And on another topic, we could talk chapter and verse of these things, and we've done things that have antagonized the bear. And when you keep antagonizing someone that maybe isn't doing what you think they're doing and isn't quite the threat you think it is, at some point they get really, really upset. And when they take a swipe at you, if it's a bear, you could lose your head on this, So it really bothers me that we're going this way, and we seem to be beyond the ability to think rationally and do a cost-benefit analysis.
Yeah, it certainly is. I certainly agree, especially since the person swiping at the bear just did a State of the Union address last night. On the same day, the Pfizer, the CDC are both released pages of side effects of a medical treatment that this man has been championing and keeping as mandatory. And if people want to say I'm biased, well, you're goddamn right I am. There's a reason I'm stuck in Mexico in a place that isn't really all that safe right now, because I didn't feel safe with a lot of the things that were happening. And also, the reports to the guy swiping the bear is Rostin Behnam, the head of the silver manipulation. David, there's things I can't yet fully put the details in public yet, but I've learned a lot about how this silver scheme works. Do you know that Rostin Behnam, as the head of the CFTC, who's part of the plunge protection team, also involved in that is the Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, who is part of the Exchange Stabilization Fund. And I know there's some gold and silver people who aren't even aware of this. That was started in 1933. And what did they do in 1934? They confiscated the gold. Then a couple months later, revalued it. So this thing was started to screw people out of the value of their gold. It's still being used to do that. I'm getting a better idea of how certain things work. And boy, there's my list of questions that this guy will never want to answer is growing and getting better. So these guys who are poking the bear, they're not doing it from a position of strength. And in the meantime, all right, I don't know, what is Putin going to do now that his currency has been crushed? I hear they've mentioned something about cryptocurrencies. They have a lot of gold. There's reports that they're buying more gold. They understand gold. While here, Biden's doing everything to destroy gold mining, gold. The bankers are selling gold they don't have. It seems like we're on the verge of popping. I'm hearing reports. Now, there was a report I read the other day about issues with the COMEX contract. I've heard Bix Veer talking about it. I talked to another person today about it. He knows the guy who wrote the initial report, so I think something unusual is happening. As common sense would indicate would be much overdue. So yeah, I am a little biased when I say these things because that's one of the many reasons I did not feel safe in the U.S. and I don't appreciate this guy, President Biden, doing a lot of the things he's doing, especially because, David, there was this thing, this was about 6 months ago, where he actually was like taunting Putin. Like, and we made a video about this, and he even involved the word nuclear. It was one of those things where you're like, kind of like trying to rile a guy up. And like you said, all right, fine. There's, who knows who was right and wrong. Although from what I've been reading, I wouldn't want to be Joe Biden. Again, his track record is what it is, but there's some of this was avoidable. And yet, some way or the other, now we have Russia's gone on nuclear alert. Joe Biden's telling Americans it's fine, but how are Americans supposed to feel? And then last night, he's still saying, take this vaccine. So, I mean, it's almost like at some point, is this man guilty of any crime yet? Because he's putting a lot of people at risk. The policies of this government have made my life extremely harder. That's why I left. That's why, a lot of things. I mean, I'm not saying me, but just everyone who's struggling. It's not a movie anymore. It's not, and you've touched on that, but any comment on any of that? Because I think you're right what you're saying. There's a lot of this stuff is reckless.
It isn't, and it isn't just Joe Biden. If he were to retire into the sunset tomorrow, it's the hundreds and thousands of people behind him that have this unworkable thesis.
Yes, the Clintons are reckless, and to be clear for any political fans, the Bushes were reckless. All these guys have been reckless and been doing horrific things. And my guess, if I had to bet on it today, I don't know if this is right or not, but what I keep hearing, which makes more sense to me than what Joe Biden is saying, is that Putin is also sick of some of the things that these people have done that are known as the deep state. And is that exactly what's happening? I don't know, but anyway, I'm sorry for interrupting. Please continue.
That's with our political leadership getting big dollars from Ukraine and from China. But here, to get back to silver again, Chris, I think that we're on the verge. There's the potential for this, for the complete collapse of the paper system that has held silver down for a couple generations. And it'll happen due to a contagion. It probably won't be because the Wall Street silver guys are buying 10 ounces each a week, and I love what they're doing. It'll be something that is completely unrelated that jumps the lane and comes over and forces the paper people out of business because, they've got margin calls on hundreds of millions of other derivatives that they wrote, and silver just happens to be, a hash mark on that. But it gets caught up because it's a contagion. It's like the wave that sweeps away the people that are standing, not in the direct part of the wave, but the affluence that comes from the overflow. And if people would consider this possibility, and I think when we look back on it, if it does happen, it'll be something it'll be like the credit Anstalt. They'll go, oh, I can't believe that's what took down the silver market and freed silver, and it went to $300 an ounce. It wasn't even related to silver, but it will take out these actors that have no idea that what's coming onto them. It's gonna blow them away. It's gonna be like a meteor hitting, out in the Gulf of Mexico, and suddenly the whole thing is shot. So if people would, Jim Rickards talks about contagion, and that to me that's one of the scariest words there is in finance, where you have something that goes wrong in one sector and it jumps the lane or jumps several lanes, and suddenly you have 5 sectors being systemic that are undergoing distress and eventual possible destruction, and you've got a problem. And if they use something that I've learned a lot from reading him and listening to what he has to say, and that's using Bayesian theorem, where you take a premise, you think something is probably going to happen or is going to happen, right? And then instead of saying this is what's going to happen and building your basis on that, you look at things that support or detract from that view over time. And when you reach a certain point, I don't know what the percentage might be. It might be 75, 80%. It might be 60. When you think it's more likely than not to happen, then you act upon that knowledge. Or if it drops to 40, you go, well, I guess I was wrong. It's not going to happen. But right now,
kind of like how technical silver, silver traders respond when it goes through a moving average.
Yes. And then you look for other things in the technical space which seem to support that. The moving averages, the advanced decline line, the how it relates to the rest of the metal sector, accumulation, distribution, jumping Bollinger Bands, and you've got 5 or 6 things that line up. And suddenly you go, it's highly likely that this is going to happen. I'm going to make a bet on it. And it's just a different way of looking at the Bayesian theorem. But that is a powerful way to do things, and it takes you and me out of the prediction business before we know what the heck we're talking about. We just let the events that come to us, and we plug it in to inform us on how likely we are to be right or wrong in what we think is going to happen, and then at some point we take action.
Well, David, I might add in the midst of all this contagion and viral talk here, that I'm looking at the Kitco chart. We're at 3:07 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, March 2nd, I believe it was. And the Kitco chart, which I look at whenever I go to the bathroom in the middle of the night or wake up or where there's a mariachi band playing at ungodly volumes until 4 in the morning, silver had been down 9 to 11 cents, for a couple of hours on the Kitco chart. Then was down about 33 cents, is now up a penny on the day. And then you just mentioned some of the other technical factors, but what do you think? Now, again, if I'm just sharing that Silver Chris finished, we just got over our payment on the second 1,000-ounce block of silver that I have. Well, one isn't really mine. One is on behalf of taking legal action against Ross Behnam and his gangster friends. But I bought one for myself because I've been saving. And rather than buying treasuries or Tesla stock, I just took a 1,000-ounce block off the market. Fortunately, we still have a couple bucks left over, so I'm going to get lunch at SC Bullion or JM Bullion, get some of those cool coins. But, I'm not telling anybody else what to do, but if people are listening to this call and they hear that, I mean, would that be kind of what you were talking about, or what would you say there?
Well, yeah, absolutely. If your analysis is pushing you to the direction that you and I are discussing, in terms of probabilities, and that's all life is. There's never any 100% prediction, but if you're moving at a certain point, you say, you know what, it's to the point where if I don't act, it's a greater risk for me than if I do. If I silver, all I'll have to deal with is price risk. I won't have to deal with availability risk. And right now, someone that doesn't have any or doesn't have enough is dealing with a host of risk factors, none of which they have any control over, and it's time for people to look, if I don't have the silver in my hand and I have it stored somewhere else, is it allocated? Is it unallocated? And something that Bob Coleman mentioned, we did an interview with him at the Morgan Report just a few days ago, David Morgan did, on Mastermind for our highest net worth subscribers. He talked about the difference between allocated and segregated. You can have allocated metal, which is in your name, but it's mixed in with other people that have allocated, and you may not get back what you put in, if that matters to you. You'll probably get your silver back. But if you're segregated, it's in your name, and it's in a separate place. It's not mixed in with somebody else that's allocated. And so that, to me, my understanding, is the highest level of having it stored someplace that is in a vault that, that is insured and everything, and reliable people that actually have it. So people need to tighten up on that. And if they're unallocated, they sure as heck need to consider going to allocated, even if they have to pay more for it. So I'm ready to buy some more silver myself. And what am I going to pay? $50 an ounce or more? But that might look pretty good when silver's trading in 3 digits, which I think it will be, maybe sooner than we think. I mean, how many people thought we'd look at a $105 barrel of oil today? And even Rostin said, this is like a week ago. He said, it could get to the point where within a month, oil could be $200 and gold could be $2,500 in a month. It probably won't happen, but it could. And anybody that thinks that they know that it won't, they're just blowing into the wind. And I can't say that.
David, as a silver mining stock analyst, would you also be able to say that higher oil cost just reduced the silver supply? Because you have companies that are already struggling, to stay in business at this suppressed price, and now, in addition to everything in their supply chain, the price going up, if they can even get it, now the oil price went up too.
Absolutely. And, I could be higher or lower for some companies, but 25%, I think, is kind of the metric for the cost of energy as a cost of getting gold and silver out of the ground into the market. And for a lot of people, it's higher. Well, guess what? At a $100 barrel versus 75 or at a $150 barrel, the metric just changed, and it ain't 25% anymore. It's a lot more, And there are silver producers out there, primary silver producers, which you and I know are just, they're less probably than 24 worldwide. But some of the more looking forward ones have done a lot to reduce their need for diesel, to do solar if they can on some, to use XRT technology for not having to bring as much ore, to the head grade. It's higher because they filtered out a lot of the waste rock beforehand, and things like, and we can use names if you want, but one of the biggest primary producers has mostly shed their base metal production. So they've concentrated on silver deposits that are very high grade and don't have much base metal. So they're not talking all the time silver equivalent ounces, which includes lead and zinc and other things. It's pretty much silver, and they're going to be able to weather this better than what you think about the the base metal producers themselves. Everybody's going to be affected by the increasing oil cost, and we're still in a carbon world, a petrol world, and we're going to be that way for a while. So, and just the fact what's it going to cost to generate the 25% of the electricity in the United States that today is generated from fossil fuel? And these people are driving around in their EVs talking about, I'm using carbon neutral. No, it ain't carbon neutral. It's suddenly become a lot less carbon neutral because a lot of the energy you're using in your car came from a coal-fired plant.
Yeah, and David, fortunately, when you're driving around in your silvery car, I have good news because you remember that 10-ounce Double Dragon silver coin you won for your great contributions to Silverfest 2?
Yeah, I'm still waiting for that.
Well, it's in Denver now. It didn't get to you yet because we were in Sayulita, which is a little bit of a jungle as it was, and then Yar was able to escape out of there back to Denver where the coin is, and then I had an issue with my foot and shoulder. She came here to solve that. Then while she was here, some guy hit and ran my car, which we're trying to get apart, which now takes 4 weeks because of supply chain issues. And so she's here now. We're sorting that out. But we believe in bringing the silver news, and that's why we keep these things going. Your coin isn't there yet, but I'm turning a positive into this. Not asking for sympathy. Maybe I'm whining a little bit. It's been a tough day, but everyone's going to smile in a second because David, that is most certainly on its way up to you. It has left Mexico. Just getting it to the U.S., not easy, but at least it's in the U.S. now. And first of all, I did say I could wrap it as a necklace if you wanted to go Mr. T style with that. I didn't know if you were up for that. Would you like it wrapped as a necklace or you just want it coin form?
Well, it's a tough call because
keep in mind this is going to be broadcast.
Yeah, I think the coin would be great, but whatever works best for you. But please.
What if I would prefer how about this? If we wrapped it as a necklace and I just get one picture of you and me together at Silverfest 3, you going Mr. T style, and then you can unwrap it if you want after that. Is that fair?
That works for me. And you know what? When I see that silver and I can touch it, I'm going to rub it between my thumb and forefinger, and I'm going to smile, and I'm going to kiss that silver. You know, people don't realize, and you and I have been to these places where they dig it out of the ground, and what they go through to get to it. I mean, it's unbelievable to get 1 ounce of 3/9 fine silver. And when you rub your finger on that and you feel that feel that's like nothing else, I mean, you realize, oh my heavens, this is really something special. I don't care what the price is. It's very, very special. And then when you realize how our modern life could not continue without it, and you go, holy smokes, I got to have some of that.
I know exactly what you mean, and maybe I'll take a picture of the coin I'm holding in my hand right now. Because especially to what you were saying, right after Silver Squeeze back in February last year, I remember talking to Yara and a few other friends, and I'm like, geez, what if this thing pops in any of these, like, you know, cool coins? Like, you know, the 5-ounce coin that costs $500, but it's really beautiful. Or something like that Double Dragon where, you know, it's like all of my life, even the 10, 12 years I've been doing this by this point, you know, I've usually been thinking about the financial element. And when I just started, like, I was like, wow, that coin, it's $100, but man, is it beautiful. It really has been, you know, kind of special, especially going through some of the journeys and adventures and challenges that have come up in the past year. And, you know, also just feeling it against your skin. I think we'll be hearing more about the medical effects of these things soon. But, David, one other piece of news that I think will make go ahead.
No. Well, I've been using silver, the hydrolyzed silver. You know, I started with silver, it's called Sovereign Silver. That's the brand name. There's others out there. And then David Morgan has been talking for some years about Thank You Silver. I think they've renamed that. But it's the same thing. The key is don't get there are things out there now that have zinc and stuff in it for doing different things. It should be just silver. I've sprayed that in my eyes 3 times to save an eye infection. And I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. Twice in Mexico and once in Argentina. One morning I got up, my left eye was bloodshot. It was hurting. It was red as a beet. And I thought, my heavens, where did that come from? You know? And I sprayed that twice with my contact in. And within minutes, the redness was gone, the pain was gone. It's really something else. And so I take that everywhere, you know, and you can drink a little bit. You know, your skin's not going to turn blue. It's very, very, you know, diluted. And it's just stunning what it can do for you. And I put it in my ear to get rid of an ear infection that I was not going to be able to go to Bolivia the next morning because my head hurt. It felt like somebody was putting a drill in it, you know. And I put some little few drops in like you do when you're a kid. Your mom has you turn sideways and put some hot oil in. I put some silver in, and then I swabbed it out. The next morning, nada. No problemo. No hay problemo at all.
Yeah, and David, we actually talked about this morning because I had an issue with my eye the last couple of days. You might ask, while you were saying that, I just drank some colloidal silver. So I got more silver in myself just so I could share the good news that I promised a couple of minutes ago before we got caught up talking about silver and all that. But just like I was explaining why your silver necklace has not arrived but is coming there, and again, I know we promised a lot of silver at Silverfest, and if I'm guilty of anything, it's wanting to get people silver for free before we have the logistical stuff set up. But the good news is that just this morning, we completed the order and purchased 400 Silverfest 2 cubes. They will not be dice this year. This year they're just cubes, but it has the Arcadia Silver logo on it. It has Silverfest 2. Then on one side it has 3/9. So everybody who won silver at Silverfest 2 who has not received it yet, it is most certainly coming. We purchased it this morning. I don't know how long it'll take to get it to somewhere that we can then ship it from. But, you know, I want people to know that when I say these things, I'm not in any way saying it lightly. And the good news is it's getting closer to getting there. And hopefully by Silverfest 3, if we can still afford to give away silver at the post-reset prices, maybe we'll have that smoothed out a little bit. Although, David, there are 2 more important notes before we wrap up here that I'll need to get your comment on. Because in terms of silver coming off the market, I believe that phenomena you were describing earlier is what the kids refer to as fear of missing out, or FOMO. Is that correct, David? You're suggesting the possibility that could occur. You were not saying or making any legal license financial advice, but just suggesting, you were actually describing the psychology behind what leads to that and how really all those factors are in place in the silver market, right?
Right. Yeah. FOMO is it's a human nature. You know, we're primitives with computers. Our brain kind of works the way it did a couple 100,000 years ago, but we have computers and we still respond emotionally to things. You know, and one of them is the fear of missing out on whether it's food or silver or anything else. And I'm telling you, you know, there's something that goes on subconsciously in most people's brains. I don't care what country they're in. I've given 1/10 ounce silver. Little silver rounds that look like a U.S. dime, but it's a bullion, to people in Argentina and Bolivia and Peru and, you know, and in this country at conferences. And I've never seen one person yet that didn't break out in a smile when they realized what it was. It's just 1/10 of an ounce, and it's not even gold. It's silver, you know. And I gave a couple to an individual that is well known in our community. I won't mention his name, but he's very well known, one of the highest profile analysts and website people out there. And we were together, I think it was in Argentina, and we were going through customs and stuff. And I gave him a couple of these. Now this guy's got more money than I've probably ever seen. And he looked at that and he started smiling. And I thought, what would this mean to a guy with all that money? And he's got a lot of silver to boot. You can't ignore what it does to your brain on a subconscious level when you realize what you're holding in your hand. It's magic.
Well, everybody does love silver, as the old saying goes. And speaking of people who seem to love silver, right before we got on the call, I saw this tweet about Keith Neumeyer interview of First Majestic Silver, who I might add is one of the proud sponsors to the Arcadia show. They were our first sponsor, so thank you to First Majestic for that. But also the news that someone said, you got to go to the 1450 mark of this link now. I believe it was on Kitco. And the woman was asking Keith about why he thinks the COMEX is rigged and the problems with that. And he was talking about how, you know, he's done what he can to withhold metal. David, I think you saw how we had a conversation with Endeavor Silver. They've been doing the same. Avino Silver, a whole bunch of others. And Keith was talking about how he'd love to see the participation of others in the industry. And I've talked with a lot of companies about that. And in fact, one of the projects that my team is not only doing right now, but hopefully finishing up, you know, is getting something that shareholders can support. So basically, you know, one pager on, look, for all of us who wish the companies would withhold metal and willing to, you know, invest in the companies and support them, you know, to get to that point, that shareholders can support. So if that's something you support, fine. If that's something someone like Eric Sprott would support, fine. If that's something that the people, however many thousand people signed that ban JP Morgan petition support, then they could do that. Also, we're going to reach out to some of the non-primary silver producers, you know, the ones that just are getting silver as a byproduct, and really are, in some cases, more able to withhold silver production without impacting their business. And I'm sure when they hear, David, when they hear the legal development, the lawyer that I finally heard back from, now I don't want to share anything because we haven't talked yet, but he was basically, we've been trying to get in contact with this person for a while because he's got a lot of great experience. In fact, this guy is so awesome. He knows someone that had a lawsuit against JP Morgan, had it thrown out. Then after JP Morgan got caught lying when John Edmonds confessed that they were rigging the market and that his supervisors knew of it, they were the ones who trained him. This guy went back to JP Morgan in the court, and those weasels, they didn't want to go to court, so they just settled. And now we finally reached them.
Well,
so Keith Neumeyer might want to know about that. Some of these companies, especially because, you know, we had that fundraiser that already has a 1,000-ounce silver bar, you know, for legal expenses, but Silver Chris in the background. I'm not being cranking on the show or doing this or that or moving out of a new hotel room or trying to get the keyboard set up so we could get a little relaxing time, although, you know, in the background of that, wait until you see the legal file I've assembled. Because it makes, like, the legal page we have up now look like, you know, a first-grade science project. Actually, first grade science projects are pretty cool. But when you see all the stuff that now we'll be able to give to our lawyer, he could give to his lawyer, and rather than letting the banks use their cartel tactics, which are backed by real genocidal crime now that we've seen. I mean, that's out in the open. There's no dispute anymore. Anyone who's not sure can watch that video I made about Justin Trudeau and his science project. We'll leave that aside. But now, just think, like, if some of these, in fact, there's a company I won't name, but certainly who will be invited to this meeting, because when I spoke to them, and this is one of the larger primary silver producers, and I remember saying, I'm like, you aware that, your price is being rigged and you're going to have a lot of money stolen from you? And he looked at it was a Zoom call, and he's like, well, yeah, I get the feeling that's the case, but it's like right now my job is to get silver out of the ground at the cheapest price possible, and that's what I'm doing. And, I get it, and everybody has what they can and can't do in life. Fortunately, that's why I've looked at my primary goal even before the show is figuring out whatever it takes within what I feel, not what the U.S. government feels is legal, moral, ethical, or peaceful, but at least how I've been living my life. I had a note card I put on my desk about this last year. That was my goal card. That whatever it takes, because this is a disgusting crime. Now people are getting killed, whether it's the stuff with the forced health policies, or now whatever's going on in Ukraine. People are dying, and it's over money. And we'll be documenting and all this stuff so it's cleared, but that's how I looked at it, where it's like really the kill shot of the financial system is the silver market. So if you just expose the truth there, and do whatever is necessary, which includes the YouTube ads. We'll be pumping all over Kitco. Wait till Jeff Christian tries to watch one of his own CPM group videos and sees my YouTube ads. And sees, I don't know, maybe we'll talk about how now this guy who said, well, I get the feeling I'm being stolen from, but I don't know what to do. Now that we've explained it all, we'll make it so obvious even the Justice Department couldn't miss it. I'm sure of it. And in fact, the Justice Department, even though they've been silent lately, David, those guys from J.P. Morgan who are facing RICO charges, they actually had their trial delayed because there was 4 of them, and the U.S. court system said they couldn't find a courtroom due to COVID that could handle more than 3. So these criminals have been allowed to have their friends continue to steal, pillage, and plunder. But that's why I get pissed off, but I'm learning to be calm and just take the right action and just let the drunken slob fall over the weight of his own profligacy, which is exactly what's happening. And now some of these other companies will be able to, in a legal, moral, and ethical way, see the support in the community of people who are disgusted with this organized crime. And also, everybody's choice to do what they want. But if people want to buy more metal and take that off the COMEX, we've been setting up a way so if people want to actually take delivery contracts, even though what did Interactive Brokers was advertising a delivery service, and Rafi, we put the money in there and they wouldn't actually give them the bars, but we're going around the back door. So people who want to take metal off that way, people who want to support the mining companies taking it off, and the mining companies, any of them that want to stop getting ripped off, whether it's, all the commodities are rigged, if we're going to be completely honest about it. Jeff Curry, Molecule Man, confirmed that much. So, David, could that be another factor in the silver market that investors might want to consider going forward? What would you say there?
Absolutely. And I think, Chris, what you're doing is quite honorable. And you're creating something that, I don't know if a mathematician would use it or somebody else, but it's called critical mass. And what happens, that's going to join with other critical mass elements, and it's going to bring a new day to the silver market that people have given up hope could ever happen. And I think it's something we can see out there on the horizon. And instead of like it used to be when you'd walk toward the horizon and it kept moving away, I think you're going to walk toward the horizon and it's going to get closer to you. That ship is coming in. And I'm telling people, in my view, having a toehold even, just a toehold, whatever you can afford that makes sense to you in the way of having silver, having some of the better mining stocks like First Majestic and Impact Silver and some of these others, have some of that. You don't need to mortgage your house, but just be involved and be supportive of things like what Chris is doing here at Arcadia, and you're going to be happy to be a part of that because you're participating, no matter how small that is. It's going to happen.
You'll be proud to be an Arcadian. I guarantee it.
Absolutely.
And David, perhaps, I mean, obviously your brilliance is so beyond words that Joe Biden clearly wouldn't even be able to figure out how to find your website. But if there's anything I could be silly enough to possibly disagree with you in today's call, when you said the ship is coming in, you know, it's like almost there, I would respectfully disagree and say that damn thing is already parked in your kitchen, because I know that these things are happening quickly, but Jerome Powell was in front of, I think it was Congress or something, there's some panel today. Did you hear that he, and I couldn't believe it, because Zero had tweeted this. Unfortunately, I saw the video. By the time this call is up, it'll be on our site already. Maybe we'll have one of those link boxes to it. He actually said, they were asking about the world reserve currency, and this morning, March 2nd, Jerome Powell said, well, we couldn't see more than one reserve currency going forward. Those words, I actually heard them, unless it was digital editing like the stuff that CNN and CNBC used to, do false flag media. But at least on YouTube, and you can see on our site, he actually said this morning that there could be more than one reserve currency going forward. Did you hear this shocking central banking monetary bombshell, David?
That's amazing. I hadn't heard that, but boy, oh boy, talk about a Freudian slip or an admission of something going on, huh?
Well, that's what I thought too. And perhaps last one before you can share how people can find you. If even Jerome Powell is now admitting that we could have more than one reserve currency, and Putin doesn't seem too happy with the dollar and the ruble's not going well, could gold or silver, at least conceivably to some people, be in that discussion? What would you say there? Could that be one of the reserve currencies going forward? In fact, I've heard that the dollar used to be backed by gold, so really we wouldn't be going that far off the reservation to connect a few dots here, would we?
Right, and you know, something that nobody's talking about, and I can't quantify it, but I have to believe it has some significance, and that's a change in relationship between the United States and Saudi Arabia, and now with the entry of Russia and Saudi Arabia. And that, they're not going to, Putin is not going to be interested in doing everything he can to support the petrodollar. So if they start buying gold, using gold to buy oil or uranium to buy oil or whatever, that's going to weaken the petrodollar, which is given us the opportunity to live well beyond our means and have everybody else in the world pay for it. So we have stirred up a nest here that is really deep, and there's some things that we probably didn't even think would ever come to light or be affected. It's going to affect everything. I don't think this was thought through at all, and we're all going to be losers, but hopefully people like you and I and the people that listen to this newscast, they're going to be less of losers, because they're going to have strategy in mind. They will have bought some gold and silver. They may buy more. They're going to hold some of the best mining operations, and they're going to keep learning, and they're going to keep learning about themselves and the opponents, and they're not going to just listen to these things that don't make any sense and that turn out to be wrong at every turn. So this is scary, but it's also an opportunity. I think there will be people listening to this newscast and what you're doing that are going to come out of this, and they're going to be some of the new financial titans that were just regular people like you and I that made a series of decisions that turned out fabulously better than they anticipated, and they had the sense to maximize that and act on it. I think it's going to be pretty exciting for those people. And a lot of regular people are going to be stepping up and finding that they're doing it a lot better than they thought from their neighbors who didn't look at any of this.
Yeah, I sure think so. And certainly, as you're saying that, I'm seeing a tweet pop up. I can't confirm the accuracy of the, but someone is suggesting Zelensky has a $1.2 billion account in Dresdner Bank in Costa Rica and bought a villa in Miami for $34 million. Unconfirmed, but that's the kind of thing that I hear. I hear he knows Hunter Biden pretty well, too. And David, well, people around the globe are waiting for Joe Biden, Jeff Curry, and J.P. Morgan to advise their clients on all the common sense that you were brave enough to share today in the face of a regime which censors you I even had a furor to, well, they shut down my channel for a week, but there's no chance they could shut down my business. It just inspired me more to destroy all this evil, whatever it takes, you know, or at least for the Comex. That's then I'm going to go play the guitar, but at least for that. So while people wait for these stewards of the political and financial realm to at least share the advice, although they, to this point, have been too cowardly to say anything ever since Ross Behnam and Jeff Curry, you know, around for Silver Speeds weekend, how can people who actually want to protect their family, who have done honest service to the planet, have worked, have built the country, made it what it is, built in various countries, bring us goods, bring us the supply chains, the truckers in Canada who are standing up, however they're surviving, all these people that are doing these things that, you know, it might not be safe for them to wait for Joe Biden to explain why silver is important. And Jeff Curry, he still hasn't called me back yet. So how can they find you and the stuff you're doing? And certainly if you would like to talk about the Load Project for a minute, I know people hear about that, and there's and I know you're part of that. So where can people find you and the great things that you're doing?
Well, I'm a senior analyst at the Morgan Report, and I contribute every month to David Morgan's letter. And I am an ambassador, along with David, to the Load Digital Silver and Gold Project, and it's on its 5th year now. And if you can buy gold and silver, and buy these coins, which have the silver is vaulted in 7 or 8 vaults around the world, and you can redeem it when you need it, and it's competitive in terms of premium and things like this. And I think it's one of the 3 legs that a well-rounded silver holder would have. They would have the physical silver, which David Morgan always recommends you do first, and then you have that's in hand, and then you have silver that is stored in a vault that is trustworthy and that's allocated to or segregated, and then you have digital silver, which I think as we get into this thing, when we get moving up above $50 silver before then, but certainly it'll become very obvious. Physical silver could be very, very difficult for ordinary mortals to get a hold of. The premium is going to make today's premium look low. And digital silver has a way to put that third leg, that third tranche in, so that you have some silver that is, not just national but global, and that it's there and it's affordable, and it gives you that opportunity to be portable with it. And so they spend a lot of time getting regulations right in all sorts of jurisdictions, including the United States, and that extra time that they spent to do that is now really starting to pay off. So if anybody's interested in looking into that, they could go to ag.lode.one, and there's a bunch of FAQs there, and they can see what's going on. So that would help them to become informed about something that we both feel very strongly about, and we continue to participate in. So that's great. I am a contributor to, by invitation. I'm not paid for it, to the Prospector News. I do about 3 or 4 of those a year. They have a bi-monthly, and we even have half a dozen of those on the Morgan Report site, which are free even to non-subscribers to go over and see some of the things that I've written about gold and silver and uranium. So that's available. And then I also have written for going on 8 years a monthly essay at Money Metals Exchange, and they're one of the highest rated metals dealers in the country. Very proud to be associated with them, and my essays are over there. I'll be sending in another one in the next week or so.
Well, David, I sure appreciate that, and I guess what gives me hope, hopefully we're closer to the day where, hopefully you won't have to be president, but that we could get someone who's listening to this today and has the energy to help rebuild this. You've been a mentor to me, not just about silver, but, as what I think an honorable man acts like and conducts himself. And, certainly I have my times where I lose my cool, but in terms of someone that I've really appreciated getting to know, and which is why we will get that Double Dragon up to you. And I'll be looking forward to a lot of things going forward. We'll come through this strong.
So thank you again for everything you stand for, and I hope people enjoyed this call today. Know that good things are coming. There's good people out there, and if you're listening today, I think you're one of them. So with that said, thanks again, David. We'll have to do this again soon.
You bet, and thank you. And I have enormous respect for you and what you're doing as well, Chris. So keep on keeping on.
Well, we'll do, and we'll celebrate soon.